Well, good morning, friends. You feel like you're 100 miles away today. I really had a shower. It's okay. We're glad you're here, whichever part of the sanctuary you want to sit in. Thank you for coming. I want to invite you to refresh your coffee cup if you want to do that. I know there's little bits of food left on the table back there, but we're going to take just a couple of moments of quiet. I feel like you're 100 miles away. We'll light the candles and we'll take this time to prepare ourselves for worship. We're glad you're here, whichever part of the sanctuary you want to sit in. Thank you for coming. I want to invite you to refresh your coffee cup if you want to do that. I know there's little bits of food left on the table back there, but we're going to take just a couple of moments of quiet. I feel like you're 100 miles away. We'll light the candles and we'll take this time to prepare ourselves for worship. We're glad you're here, whichever part of the sanctuary you want to sit in. Thank you for coming. I want to invite you to refresh your coffee cup if you want to do that. I know there's little bits of food left on the table back there. We're going to take just a couple of moments of quiet. I feel like you're 100 miles away. We'll light the candles and we'll take this time to shower. It's okay. We're glad you're here, whichever part of the sanctuary you want to sit in. Thank you for coming. I want to invite you to refresh your coffee cup if you want to do that. I know there's little bits of food left on the table back there. We're going to take just a couple of moments of quiet. I feel like you're 100 miles away. I really had a shower. It's okay. We're glad you're here, whichever part of the sanctuary you want to sit in. Thank you. I want to invite you to refresh your coffee cup if you want to do that. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Friends, come, let us worship. And our opening hymn, Precious Lord, take my hand. Let's sing together. follow surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Friends, come, let us worship. And our opening hymn, Precious Lord, take my hand. Sing together. Surely goodness and follow, surely goodness and mercy. Sometimes life is indeed stormy, O God. Sometimes we feel tired, weak, and worn, and it's hard to imagine pressing on. Sometimes we're just not sure how to make it on our own, and all the options before us are daunting. Reach out to us in those times. Take our hand in your hand, guide our feet on your path, and breathe. Sometimes life is indeed stormy, O God. But when the storm sometimes we feel tired, we you hold on, and it's hard. Remind us that we may have strength that others. Sometimes we're just not sure how to make it on our own. Take our and all the options before and place them in the hands of others, that we might be your hands and feet. Take our hand in your hand, guide our feet on your path, and breathe. Sometimes life is indeed stormy, O God. When the storm sometimes we feel tired, we you hold on, and it's hard. Remind us that we may have strength that others. Sometimes we're just not sure how to make it on our own. Take our and all the options and place them in the hands of others, that we might be your anyone in Christ is and you take our hand. The past is finished and gone, and everything is precious. Sometimes life is friends rejoice and trust God. When the storm sometimes we feel tired, we you Lord. Remind us that we may have strength that others. Sometimes we're just not sure how to make it strength. Place them in the hands of others, that we might be one in Christ is the past is finished and gone, and everything is precious. Rejoice and trust God. the wrong button the wrong way. Sorry about that. Let me talk to the kids for just a couple of minutes, and I wanted to show you this morning's Google Doodle. Do you know what a Google Doodle is? Anybody look at today's Google Doodle? Nobody else was checking in on it. You were checking the Google Doodle, okay. The Google Doodle is what shows above the search bar on the Google engine, and I just thought it was kind of fun. So I've asked Paul if he would. Let me talk to the kids for just a couple of minutes, and I wanted to show you this morning's Google Doodle. Do you know what a Google Doodle is? There we go. Move out of the way. Anybody look at today's Google Doodle? Nobody else was checking in on it. You were checking the Google Doodle, okay. The Google Doodle is what shows above the search bar on the Google engine, and I just thought it was kind of fun. So I've asked Paul if he would. Let me talk to the kids for just a couple of minutes, and I just thought they were so cute. To show you this morning's Google Doodle. Do you know what a Google Doodle is? There we go. There you go. You don't like being followed like that? Nobody else was checking in. You were checking the Google Doodle, okay. What's the third one look like? The Google Doodle is what shows above the search bar on the Google engine, and I just thought it was kind of fun. So I've asked Paul if he would. Let me talk to the kids for just a couple of minutes, and I just thought they were so happy Mother's Day, everybody. What do mums do? There we go. What does Google think, Mom? There you go. You don't like being followed like Shield, that? Protect, everything, says somebody. Yeah. Okay. What's the third one? Help people. Sure. Shows above the there we go. Peace. The next one. And I just thought lots of different things moms do. I've asked Paul. Yeah. Try to get away from the kids. It doesn't work, does it? Mother's Day, everybody. What do mums do? What does a shepherd do? There you go. I think we see a whole lot more ducks than we see shepherds in our protect everything, says somebody. Yeah. If we were living back in Jesus' time, we would probably see more shepherds than we would see ducks. But I think they're a lot of the same things, right? Try to get away from the kids. It doesn't work, does it? Make sure the sheep has something to eat, for sure. What does the shepherd do? What else, Faith? There you go. I think we see a whole lot more ducks. They have to feed them, sure. Everything. And protect them from the rain. And if we were living back wild animals, sure. We would probably see more. Today is a day in the Bible reading when we're talking about Jesus as the shepherd. And when I saw the mother duck up there, I thought she was really shepherding her little carcass. Yeah, what else, Faith? And thinking about Jesus, whether we think about Jesus as a mother who protects, or as a mother duck who shields you from the rain, or as a shepherd who leads you to somewhere to eat, I think those are all really important metaphors and ways of thinking about Jesus and God and the way that we are protected and loved and cherished and cared for and nurtured and fed and taken care of. What else, Faith? And thinking about Jesus, whether we think about Jesus as a mother who protects, or as a mother duck who keeps you from the rain, or as a shepherd who leads you somewhere to shepherd. I think those are all really important metaphors for us, ways that kind of power and God and the way that we are protected and loved and cherished. It's a powerful image that runs all the way through the Bible and certainly through all of our lessons today. Thinking about Jesus, go downstairs with Jesus as a mother who protects, or as a mother duck who keeps you from the rain, or a particularly special message on Mother's Day. I think those are all really important metaphors for ways that kind of just like that mother duck. Let's say our Lord's Prayer together, and then when we've done that, we're going to sing our hymn, and while we sing, we'll collect the gifts that Jesus brought us to. Let's pray. We'll wait until Paul finds the words here. Maybe we can remember them without. What do you think? Try and see. Let's pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Let's say our Lord's Prayer. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We're going to sing our hymn, and while we sing, we'll forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation. Finds the words here. Maybe we can remember them without. Thine is the kingdom. Try and see. Power and glory. Our Father, forever and who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom And so as we sing, I'll invite the kids to collect the gifts that people have brought and come and put them on the communion table. Give us our trespasses as we forgive. And the hymn is In Lonely Mountain Ways. Now, here's one that I think we don't know. How did you make out the choir? Why don't you play it all the way through from start to finish so people at least get a sense of the tonality? We're experimenting with new hymns this month because of Asian Heritage Month. I've discovered there are a few in the hymn book that we haven't learned yet. Here's another new one that I thought was kind of cool. It's a Japanese image and a Japanese tune. Let's sing one that I think we don't know. How did you make out the choir? Why don't you play it all the way through from start to finish so people at least get a sense of the tonality? We're experimenting with new hymns this month because of Asian Heritage Month. I discovered there are a few in the hymn book that we haven't learned yet. Here's another new one that I thought was kind of cool. It's a Japanese image. Lots of noisy gifts today. Interesting how sometimes they're quiet and sometimes they're not. Lots of gifts on the table today. Let's give thanks for everything that's here. Let us pray. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for generosity and thank you for kindness and compassion. Thank you for the gifts that have been offered. Come bless them. Come bless them and bless those who give them and bless those who will receive them. Use them and use us. Sometimes they're quiet, sometimes they're not. Passion for the neighbors we have. Lots of gifts on the table today. Let's give thanks for everything that's here. Let us pray. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for generosity and thank you for kindness and compassion. Thank you for the gifts that have been offered. The first reading is actually Acts, Paul, not Revelation. We've just mixed them up and use them and use us. So that's okay. We'll have the Acts reading now, and then Psalm 23, and then the Revelation. Let's give thanks for everything that's here. Let us pray. Loving God, thank you. Thank you for generosity and thank you for kindness and compassion. Thank you for the gifts that have been offered. The first reading is actually Acts, Paul, not Revelation. We've just mixed them up and use them and use us. So that's
Now in Joppa,
we'll have the Acts reading now, and then Psalm 23, and then the Revelation. Let's give thanks for everything.
In Greek,
Let us pray. Loving God,
was
thank you
devoted to good works
for
and acts
generosity
of
and
charity.
for kindness.
At that time, she became ill and died.
First reading is
When they
actually
had washed her,
Acts,
they
Paul,
laid
not
her in a
Revelation.
room upstairs.
We've just mixed them up.
Since Lydda was near Joppa, the disciples who heard that Peter was there sent 2 men to him with the request, "Please come to us without delay." So Peter got up and went with them, and when he arrived, they took him to the room. She became ill and died. All the windows stood beside him. Widows stood beside him, weeping and showing tunics and other clothing that Dorcas had made. That Peter was there, sent 2 men. Peter put all of them outside. "Please come to us down and prayed." So Peter turned to the body and said, "Tabitha." When he arrived, they took him. Then she opened her eyes and thing Peter she set up. Widows he gave her his hand and out showing tunics, then calling the saints and widows, he showed her to be alive. This became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Meanwhile, he stayed in Joppa for some time, and a certain Simon, and then she opened her eyes, and seeing she set up. Widows he gave her his hand and out showing tunics, then
Thank you, Esther.
calling the saints and widows, he showed
The
her
lectionary gives us many different options
this became
for
known
readings,
throughout
and
Joppa.
Paul and I
Many
guess didn't
believed
get our
in
story
the
straight this week.
Lord. Meanwhile,
Usually we have a responsive reading where we read one of the Psalms or a portion out of the Psalms. This week the Psalm appointed for the day is "The Lord is my shepherd," the Psalm 23, and there's a wonderful musical setting for it that I wanted us to sing instead of and Paul, perhaps we didn't look at the bulletin, but you may have to look then in your hymn book. 749, I hope is correct. Usually we have a responsive reading where we read one of the Psalms. Oh, okay. Well, then if it's not appointed for the day, I had asked for 748, but we got the wrong page. There's a wonderful music. So let's then follow what's on the slides, and we won't change that. Perhaps we didn't look at. So let's stand then, and we'll do this responsibly as it is on the screen. Hymn book 749, I hope is correct. Usually we have a responsive reading where we read one of the Psalms. Oh, okay. Well, then if it's not appointed for the day, I had asked for 748. So let's then follow what's on the slides. God is my shepherd, there is nothing I shall lack. You, God, make me lie down in green pastures. You lead me beside peaceful waters. Revive my spirit. Guide me in right pathways for your name's sake. God is my shepherd. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. You, God, make your rod and your staff are my comfort. You lead me to spread a table for me in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup is overflowing. Surely your goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in God's house my whole life long. God is my shepherd. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. God, make your rod and your staff are my comfort. You lead me to spread a table for me in the sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup is overflowing. Surely your goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. So now I wanted to share with you that passage from Revelation. This is from Revelation 7, 9 to 17. I looked, and there was a great multitude that nobody could count. From every nation, from all the tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, robed in white, that passage from Revelation in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice, saying, "Salvation belongs to our God who is seated on the throne and to the Lamb." And all the angels stood around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshipped God, singing, standing before the throne and blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. In a loud voice, saying, "Salvation belongs to our God who is seated on the throne." Who are these robed in white? Where have they come from? And all the angels stood around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and these are they who fell on their faces before the throne, and they washed their robes, they made them white in the blood of the Lamb, and for this reason are they before the throne of God, and they worship Him day and night within His temple, and the one seated on that throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more, neither thirst anymore. The sun will not strike them, nor any scorching heat. The Lamb and the ransom of the throne will be their shepherds. These are they who will guide them in springs of living water. They made them white in the blood of the Lamb, and for this reason are they before the throne of God, and they worship Him day and night within His temple. And the one seated on that throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more. The elders will neither thirst anymore. The sun will not go out. We'll get to that in a minute. But I wanted to ask you first. Here's an off-the-wall question. What's your favorite disaster? He laughs. Yeah, I thought you would. You were supposed to. That's good. So, what's your favorite disaster movie? Titanic. Okay, that's a good one. Sorry? Deep Impact. Absolutely. Yeah. Poseidon Adventure, for sure. How many more can we name? I wanted to ask you first. Day After Tomorrow, 2012? 2112. He laughs. The Towering Inferno. How come we've got so many of these? So, what's your favorite disaster movie? We must really like disasters in our culture, right? That's a good one. Sorry? If you were going to think about all the disaster movies you've ever seen, and you know, you could also add in a lot of the superhero movies, you know, the Avengers and Superman and Dark Knight Rises and some of those as well. What are some of the things that they all have in common? He laughs. The Towering Inferno. You were going to write a disaster movie. How does the plot? So, what's your favorite disaster movie? We must really like disasters in our culture, right? There's always a great evil, absolutely. And it's a cosmic evil, right? I mean, it's immense, it's huge, it's bigger than kind of. You could also add in a lot of the superhero movies, you know. Absolutely, that's one of the things. You've got to have that, or it's not a disaster. Some of those as well. What else do you have to make it a disaster? What are some of the things that they all have in common? He laughs. The Towering Inferno. A good end? Yeah, I think so. I think disaster movies are all about how you survive the disaster. There's always a great evil. So if it's just a disaster movie and everybody ends up dead, it's immense, it's huge, it's bigger than kind of. You could also add in. So yeah, I agree. A good ending is absolutely crucial. You got to have that, or it's not a disaster. Some of those as well. What else? People coming together survive. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's essential to the plot. A good end? Yeah, I think so. I think disaster movies are all about how you survive the disaster. There's always a great evil. So if it's just a disaster movie and everybody ends stories for a whole lot longer than the 20th century, this is not just something that Hollywood made up. A good ending is absolutely. There are all kinds of disaster stories in the Bible. No, it's people coming together survive. Absolutely. Yeah, I think the story of Job is a disaster story. The Exodus is a disaster story. Think about all those 10 plagues. Are all about how you survive the disaster. Every generation tells their own disaster story. That's just part of being human. This is not just something that. And back in the ancient days, when we told stories about Noah's flood or the story of Job or some of those disaster stories, the disasters by and large were nature disasters, right? Floods and illnesses and plagues and frogs and you know all of those kinds of natural disasters. Every generation tells their own disaster. Today, we tell stories about technological disasters. And back we tell stories about climate change or Godzilla or aliens coming or an asteroid that hits the Earth. Every culture tends to tell disaster stories about the same illnesses and plagues and frogs. And, I think that's just kinds of natural disasters. And so if you're living in an agricultural society on the edge of the stream, or if you're living in Ottawa in 2020 or 19, it tells flood stories, climate change, or Godzilla, or aliens, or an asteroid. And in our world, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see disaster stories starting to happen around the same illnesses and plagues. We've had them about nuclear. I think that's just kinds of natural disasters. And so if you're when we tell these disaster stories, we make the division between good and evil 20 or 19. It tells a flood story. It is in real life. Evil becomes even more evil, and good becomes even more good, and the evil becomes cosmic. And that's just part of how we tell the story. Disaster stories starting to happen. And I think we tell these stories to we've had them about to remind ourselves, or to kind of articulate for ourselves the things we're afraid of and the ways in which we live in a world that's beyond our control. 20 or 19. And that yet somehow there is a way evil becomes even more evil. There's some good becomes more. There's a way to kind of fix it, whether it's Jurassic Park or whether it's the way we defeat Lex Luthor. It doesn't matter. I think we tell these stories to. So we hear stories about heroism and courage and strength of the little guy. We live in a world that all of that gets rolled into this way of telling stories, this way of understanding. Evil becomes disaster and how way to things get kind of fixed, and also the ways that are evil. So the way we they told disaster stories, and the first we hear stories about heroism. If we talk about the natural disasters of the flood, we talk about the technological disasters of our age. In the first century, they told stories about evil armies. But again, they exaggerate. Evil armies that are even more evil than the armies that they were afraid of. So we get not just human armies, but cosmic armies. We get angelic armies fighting demonic armies. We get Michael with his shining sword. We get dragons, the horror of Babylon. In the first century, they told stories, and there are all kinds of armies in the first century. Not in our Bible again, but in the first century, scholars keep finding new ones. There's very Jewish ways of telling stories, but it's not just even restricted to Judaism. Lots of Zoroastrian armies fighting demonic armies. A lot of our legends, we get angels and dragons come out of Zoroastrian. They're not founded in Christianity, and there are all kinds of armies in the first century. But they're disaster Bible again. But like the disaster stories we tell, or like the flood story that the Jews told 1,000 years before Christ, they all have a similar shape. Lots of Zoroastrian cosmic evil. You've got a battle, you've got a resolution, you've got a way through, you've got a hero, you've got the conviction that though evil is overwhelming, somehow good will triumph. And peace will come. But they're disaster Bible again. But like the disaster stories we have tell, like the flood story that the Jews told, story 1,000 years before Christ. And maybe because it's only one, we don't know what to do with it. Cosmic evil, you've got to. But whatever else, the book of Revelation, it's disaster heroes. And it's one of 100 that we know of that come out of the first century that are cosmic and angelic and peaceful. You know, Satan fighting Michael and all of those kinds of ways of telling stories. Too often, I think, when we read Revelation, we get hung up on the disaster. But whatever else, we don't know what to make of the disaster. And we're focusing on the wrong stuff. Because the disaster in Revelation is what makes it exactly the same as every other disaster story that people were telling. It's awful, it's scary, lots of people get killed, there's lots of bloodshed, lots of pyrotechnics. You can imagine Hollywood, we read a lot of fun, but we get hung up on the disaster. What makes Revelation different is not the disaster. We don't know what to make of the resolution. And we're focusing, we want to find out how to tell it. Because the disaster in Revelation is what makes it, as opposed to any old every other disaster story that people were telling. You look at how this Christian disaster story is different from every other. Lots of pyrotechnics. You can imagine Hollywood. That's where the message is. That's where the surprise is. That's where the aha is not the disaster. We don't know what the gospel is. When you read the book of Revelation, you want to find out how to tell it. So let me just kind of pull out some of the images in that weird passage that I just read to you from Revelation 7 to kind of highlight some of the things that you would not expect to find in Titanic or The Dark Knight Rises or the flood story or Job. That's where the first thing is that opening line sees among the saved a multitude from every language, from every culture, from every country, from every language. A multitude so huge that you can't possibly number. To kind of highlight some of the things that you would not expect to find in Titanic or The Dark Knight Rises. Only one family gets saved. That's where the first thing is when Superman goes out to save the world. There's this path of destruction and all kinds of dead people that say his way. A multitude from every, but in Revelation, from every culture, everything you would say. A multitude so huge that you save. Nothing that is worth saving is lost. Nothing is left behind. Evil is destroyed, but everything else is restored and fixed and repaired and renewed and restarted and made brand new. Path of destruction and all kinds of dead. And nothing worth saving is lost at all. But in Revelation, that does not belong in your standard disaster story. It is not part of the story of saving. Nothing that is worth saving is part of lost. Nothing is left behind. Evil so the author of Revelation is taking this way of telling stories that is exciting and interesting and everybody loves, and spinning it different, and nothing worth saving is lost. So that in Revelation, everyone and everything that is worth saving. Story. It is not part of the story of saving. So many things that is worth it is part of lost. Nothing is left for lost. Evil. So the author of Revelation is taking this way of telling stories that is exciting and interesting and everybody loves. And spinning it different. The resolution of Revelation is in Revelation very different from our standard way of talking about Another thing here is that the hero of this disaster story is not a fierce lion. Revelation is taking this way of nobody stories that under God's great earth, how could you possibly turn a lamb into a hero? Spinning it different. Apart from the fact that we all know that this is how the story works, and so we're not surprised by it anymore, this doesn't make sense. What kind of lamb is a hero? What kind of hero is a lamb? How can a lamb do anything useful to fix, cause not a fierce? How could a lamb possibly confront the evil that damages the world and is going to turn everything upside down? What kind of power does a lamb have? Apart from the fact that we all know that this is how the story works, and so we're not surprised by it anymore, this doesn't make sense. What kind of lamb is the gospel? What kind of hero is a lamb? How can a lamb do all too often in our hero stories, the hero wins by possibly confront the evil that's having this argument by text going to turn everything upside down? What kind of power does my daughter last night about whether Iron Man is a good model for the world? And I was suggesting to her, and she was kind of uncomfortable with this idea, that if we depend on heroes like Iron Man, all too often that we're going to elect the hero wins by might. She sent us back an emoji of somebody vomiting. It's going to turn everything upside down. What kind of power does a But isn't that what we're saying? That if Iron Man is a hero, if the strength of Iron Man is what defeats evil, then what we need to do is elect leaders who are as strong as Iron Man. And that means as violent and as forceful and as uncompromising and leaving that kind of trail of destruction in their wake. Those are the heroes of our society. If you go and see the Avengers, you're going to see all kinds of if Iron Man is a hero, if the strength of Iron Man is what defeats evil, then what we need to do is elect leaders who are as the only way you know who's good and who's bad is not by what they do, but what's called as uncompromising and leaving that kind of trail is the hero of their story. Those are the heroes of our society. It's not a forceful warrior like you're going to see all kinds of Iron Man is a hero. Whoever defeats Godzilla coming from both good guys and a lamb. Then what we need to do is elect a lamb who uses the power of that mother duck that we watched with the kids. A lamb who offers shelter and kindness and support and nurture and brings people food and somehow or other those kinds of forceful warriors are what defeats evil. Reminds me of Martin Luther King saying the only force capable of turning an enemy into a friend. A lamb who uses the power of that mother duck, power of Iron Man, a lamb who offers shelter and kindness and power of land, nurture and brings people food. Lambs are cute. And somehow or other those, and they make your heart melt. And all you want to do is reach out and give them a hug. Reminds me of Martin Luther King saying the only force capable of turning an enemy into a friend. A lamb who uses the power of that mother duck, power of Iron Man. A lamb who offers shelter, hero of this power of land story at the end of our Bible. Lambs are cute. And somehow or other those. But then John the Divine goes one step further because all you want to do is reach out cute, cuddly lamb who kind of makes everybody go, aw. This is a lamb who was slain. This is a lamb who was killed. Now you know he's smoking something. How could a dead lamb be the hero of this power of land story at the end of our Bible? We talked a little bit about, but then John the Divine goes one step further because of the lamb. On Good Friday, everybody talked about the image of Jesus as the Lamb of God, and we kind of unpacked that a little bit. Let me remind you of some of what we said. We talked about how on Good Friday, John, who is writing John's Gospel, was describing the crucifixion and Jesus up on the cross, and at the same time picturing the priests out in the temple who are preparing for the Good Friday. Everybody talked about what are they doing? They're killing lambs, Jesus, so that everybody can have a lamb dinner that night. Let me remind you of some of what we said. We talked about the Lamb of God. How could it go on? John's followers, including John the Divine here, is the one who reminds us of that enormous act of salvation in the Exodus when God rescues slaves and draws them out of Egypt and out into the wilderness and makes us an independent people with a future, with hope and with prosperity and with interdependence instead of being under the thumb of the domineering Egyptian followers, including John the Divine here. Is the one who reminds us of that enormous blood of the Passover lamb. When God put on the doorpost, reminded people that this is a household that trusts in God to save an independent people with. And when Revelation says we are saved by the blood of the Lamb, it's the blood of the Passover lamb. It's the blood of the one who leads us into freedom. It's the blood of the one who rescues us from the oppression of slavery. It's the blood of the one who feeds us our last good meal before we go out on that journey towards the promised land. It's the blood of the one household that trusts and names us and draws us together and gives us an identity. And when Revelation says we have been saved, it's the blood of the Passover lamb. It's the blood of the one who leads us to freedom. It's the blood of the one who... So if we were Jewish reading about the blood of the lamb, that would be obvious. But since we're not, we need to unpack the image. The blood of the lamb is a reference back to that on that journey towards the promised land. It's the blood of and it's supposed to remind us, names us, draws us together, and gives us an identity. And when Revelation says we have been saved, it's the lamb. It's the blood of the Passover lamb. It's the blood. How often in a disaster movie you see the hero sacrifice? So if we were Jewish reading about the blood of the lamb, that would be protobag. Since we're not, we need to unpack the image. The blood of the lamb for his role in the Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter pays a significant price, and it's his role in the disaster portions of those stories. I wonder how much extra credibility Nelson Mandela has because he spent 25 years in prison. It's huge, I think. So if we were Jewish reading about when you compare Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Tutu, both incredible leaders. Nelson Mandela shines in a way that Tutu doesn't quite. It's his role, and it's because of the disaster portions of those stories. We've been reading in the press this week about John Vanier who died. Would he have the same credibility if he hadn't given up all the authority that goes with being the Governor General's son and being a tenured professor? And Archbishop Tutu, both incredible sacrifice that he went and gave away credibility and authority to speak in something that was a disaster. We've been, and I think John the Divine, who is telling us about the Lamb that was slain, is talking about that as the power of Jesus, that it is Jesus' sacrifice, and being more than anything else, it gives him the power and the authority to combat the evil that plagues the world. It draws to a different kind of authority to speak in something that was a disaster. You will not find that in most disasters. We've been, and I think John the Divine, when you do, telling us about the Lamb in Harry Potter or in the Lord of the Rings, it's going against the type in order to make exactly that point. As Christians, we trust in the power of sacrifice, not in the power of power and the authority. We trust in the power of Nelson Mandela, not in the power of the U.S. Army. How are we going to combat evil? You have to combat evil using tools that will leave the world a better place. And the way you do force, Harry Potter or in the Lord of the Rings, it's going against the type in order to make exactly that point. That little passage that I read ends with another remarkable moment. Trust in the power of, and again, we know it. It's so familiar. We read this at half the funerals I do. It's a passage that we know so well. We forget how weird it is. That will leave the world a better place. But it ends with the Lamb who is in the middle of the throne room, receiving all this adulation, in the middle of the victory celebration with the countless multitude nobody could name, waving the palm branches of victory. And what does he do? He reaches out to, and again, we know it. It's so familiar. We read this at half the funerals I do, it's a passage that we know so well, we forget how weird it is. I think the last person who dried my tears was my mother when I was in the middle of the throne room receiving all this. Can you imagine the President of the United States coming into your home and doing celebration with the... Can you imagine the Queen of Canada or the Queen of England coming into your home and drying your tears? Like, these people don't do that. They are so important and so global and so cosmic, there is no way that they could possibly be that intimate. I think the last person who dried my tears, imagine my mother when I was in the middle of the throne room receiving all this. Can you imagine the President of the United States? This is a passage about the incredible. Can you imagine the Queen of Canada or the Queen of England coming into your home? Incredible tender intimacy. Like, these people don't do that. They are so important and so global and so cosmic. There is no way that they could possibly be that intimate. I think the last person who dried my hair by compassion, by reaching out to dry somebody else's tears. Can you imagine the President of the United States? This is a passage of... I searched the internet forever trying to find a picture of somebody drying somebody else's tears. Paul, you found one, but holy cow, they're rare. These people don't do that. We don't do that. We don't violate each other's personal space like that. There is no way that they could possibly be that intimate. I think the last person who dried my hair by compassion, by the divine Eugene, reaching out to dry somebody else. And he took this way of telling stories that everybody knew and everybody loved and everybody had enjoyed. And he exploded the pyrotechnics and he created a disaster story that we're still reading 2,000 years later. But he twisted its plot. He gave us a very different hero. He gave us a very different outcome. And he told us to trust this way of telling stories that everybody knew and everybody loved and everybody had enjoyed. And he exploded the pyrotechnics and he created a disaster story that we're still reading 2,000 years later. Next time you go and see a disaster movie, he gave us a very different. And you know, there's always a blockbuster. A very different outcome. Enjoy the pyrotechnics. He told us to trust this. Enjoy the cosmic battle between good and evil, because we do live in the midst of that. Enjoy. And really, that's exploded. But allow yourself to wonder: is this really the way to bring to peace? Is this really the kind of hero we should be celebrating? Go and see a disaster. Is this and you know resolution believable? Is this hero strong enough to turn an enemy into a friend? Enjoy the cosmic battle between good and evil, because we do live in the midst of that. And what the movie makers are inviting us to trust in is this really the kind of hero we should what we can trust in is deeper than that? Is this resolution believable? The only thing is this hero strong enough to turn an enemy into a friend? Enjoy the cosmic battle between good and evil, because we do live in the midst of that. What the movie makers are inviting us to trust in. So let's sing together. Oh, holy cities, this is really the kind of hero what we can trust in is deeper than that. Is this resolution believable? Is this why I'm so enjoy the cosmic battle because it's what the movie makers are inviting us to trust in. So let's sing together. Holy cities, this is So again, welcome. We're glad you're here. Thanks for joining us. Follow the service today. I'd invite you to come back and join us in the parlors on the left for a bite to eat, some tea and coffee, a little bit of sugar for the kids, and just a chance to connect with each other. A few announcements I wanted to draw to your attention. First of all, simply to say thank you to the folks who were participating in the silent auction, and to invite you, if you follow the service today, I'd invite part of that. If you were notified that your baskets were ready to come and pick them up. I know they pulled the names out after church last Sunday, and they're kind of notifying people by telephone. So if yours is one of the baskets, today's Mother's Day, and first of all, simply to say thank you to the folks who were. Refugee Support Committee is meeting on the 16th of May. That's Thursday. And we're meeting at coffee time. So if you're not sure where we're going, let me know, and we'll. I know they pulled the name the right place. Next Sunday, Linda Levin is coming to be our guest speaker, and yours is one. I invite you to come and support her and listen to the things she has to say. She's doing some interesting work in this charity that supports orphans, but she's going to talk to us about God's cheering. So if you're not sure where we're going, she's picked out a passage from Proverbs that she wants to share with you. And next Sunday, Linda Levin is coming to. And then the following week is our celebration of Asian heritage. So come, and we'll have a service that features some of our own members reflecting on their history and their background and the ways that their own Asian heritage has helped shape their sense of God and hope and passage of life. Proverbs will be punctuated by a variety of Asian music, some of which we've already. And then the following week is our celebration of Asian heritage, and then the reception follows. We'll have a service that be a part of that. If you have Asian heritage in your background, we'd be delighted if you contribute to their own heritage feast that follows our service. There'll be a stand-up reception in the parlors following that service. So that's punctuated by a variety of Asian music, some of May. And then the worship committee meets on the 28th of May. On the 15th of June, we're inviting you to come and help your, if you have Asian heritage in your back, we do a work day in the fall and a work day in the spring, and that's the day that the property committee has set aside. Rain date on the 22nd. So we have stand-up reception in the pouring with rain. Of course, we won't be trimming bushes. So that's, but if we can, we'd love to have as many people as possible. There's a bunch. Then the worship committee meets on the 28th, and some conversation about that on the 15th of June. Go and have a look at that. We're inviting. And then the following day is our outdoor service. So again, we're hoping for good weather. We'll bring the chairs out and put up some of those tents to keep us in the shade, and we'll have our worship service outside, and then barbecue picnic pouring with rain. Of course, we won't. The 27th of July is the bus trip, and time is getting short if you want to be a part of this. This is a cruise on the Grand River. It includes lunch and the cruise and some entertainment and a bus down to the dock and a variety of different things. There's some information about that and what's happening. We need to know by the end of the month so that we can order the tickets, barbecue, and make sure we've got a full bus. So speak to Linda Calasar or give us a call at the bus trip, and time is getting short if you want to be a part of this. This is the other thing I wanted to let you know, and there's a sort of brief story about this and what's happening. Nancy Singla and I are trying to figure out whether it's possible to pull together a fundraising concert for the refugee support money. We haven't finalized all the details yet. We're hoping to pull together enough performers, but we're inviting you right now to save the date on Saturday the 15th of June. We've got some performers there that can tell the women who have some things that they can sing that would be brief from what they're saying to what's happening. We need to raise just a little extra money for our refugee support program. The refugees arrived kind of before we finished the fundraising. You may remember that things suddenly got very hot for them where they were, and the Canadian government kind of opened the doors a little more than usual and brought in a whole bunch of Eritreans from Israel because Israel was getting to be an extremely uncomfortable place. So we thought we were going to have an extra year or so to raise money, and we suddenly jumped into helping them get the refugees arrived So now we need to top up the kitty too. You may remember there are things suddenly got very hot for them where they were, and the need of kind of dipping into the rest of the doors a little more than usual. So that's what the concert is for, and we hope we can get enough performers to make it work. If we can't, we'll probably do something in the fall. We won't see the refugees a year or so to raise money. Stuck. We'll make sure that they get enough money to eat and so on. We will fulfill our obligations, even if we have to dip into the rest of the church's funds to do it. And then we'll top that up again with some more fundraising. But if we can do it, kind of June, that's sort of our plan A. So that's what the concert is for. We hope we can get enough performers to make it work. If we can't, those are all the announcements I have. We will to invite you then to continue in worship. Stuff. We bring ourselves and get enough money to eat and so on. We will fulfill our obligations, even if we have to dip into the rest of the church's funds to do it. And then we'll pop that up again with some more fundraising. But if we can do it, kind of June, that's sort of our plan A. So that's what the concert is for. Hope we can get enough performers to make it work. If we can't, those are all the announcements I have. So to invite you then to continue in worship. Stuff. We bring ourselves and get enough money to eat and so on. We will fulfill our obligations, even if we have to dip into the rest of the church's funds to do it. And then we'll pop that up again with some more fundraising. If we can do it, kind of June, that's sort of our plan A. So that's what the concert is for. Those are all the announcements. So to invite you to worship stuff, we bring ourselves and get enough money to eat and so on. Our obligations, even if we have to do it. And then we'll pop that up again with some more. If we can do it, that's sort of We do indeed praise you, O God, for all that you have offered us and all that you strengthen us. Use these gifts to use us. Bring your hope to the world in Jesus' name. We do indeed praise you, O God, for all that you have offered us and all that you strengthen us. Use these gifts to use us. Bring your hope to the world in Jesus' name. Our practice, as you know, is to build these prayers of the people together so that they truly come from you. So we'll begin, as we often do, with the things that we're grateful for. We give thanks for today. We do indeed praise you, O God, for all that you have offered us and all that you strengthen us. Use these gifts to use us. Bring your hope you jumped the gun. That's great, thank you. Earl, okay, thank you. It was the same thing. You're grateful for that too. Excellent. So based on her first year paper, she won an award for the paper she wrote. That's really exciting. And you don't have the certificate, right? You have to go back another year. So we're expecting more awards. So we'll begin as we I was going to mention that. That's really exciting. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Maria, you were going to say something Earl, too. Okay, thank you. It was everybody's surprised. Sorry, everybody's celebrating Earl today. Excellent. What else are we thankful for aside from awards? Excellent. Yeah, so based on her first year paper, she won an award for the mothers. That's really exciting. Thank you. And you don't have the certificate, right? You have to go back another year. So we're expecting more awards. John Van, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this tonight. Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Maria, you were going to say Earl. Okay, thank you. It was everybody's surprised. Sorry, everybody's celebrating Earl today. Excellent. What else are we thankful for aside from awards? Excellent. Yeah, so based on her first year paper, she won an award for the mothers. Sorry, Dorothy. Thank you. And you don't have the certificate, right? You have to go back another year. So we're expecting more awards. John Van, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this tonight. Thank you. Concerns. Thank you. Maria, you were going to say Earl. Okay. It was everybody's surprised. Sorry, everybody's celebrating Earl today. Excellent. What else are we thankful for aside from awards? Yeah, so based on her first year paper, she won an award for the mothers. Sorry, Dorothy. And you don't have the certificate, right? You have to go back another year. That's hard. So we're expecting more awards. John Van, yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this tonight. Thank you. Concerns. Maria, you were going to say Earl. Okay. It was everybody's surprised. Sorry, everybody's celebrating Earl today. We'll draw ourselves together in prayer now. Let us pray. Yeah, based on her first year paper, she won an award for the mothers. Sorry, Dorothy. And you don't have the certificate, right? Loving God, we bring thanks for educational institutions and opportunities to learn and ways that you connect us to ancient traditions. We bring thanks for the opportunities you've offered Earl and the ways that she has blossomed in the midst of those. We bring thanks for mothers, for the power of God. We bring nurture for educational institutions and opportunities to learn and ways that you and the things we learn about what changes the world. Traditions. We bring thanks for the opportunities you've offered Earl and the ways that she has blossomed in the midst. We bring thanks for children too who celebrate their mothers today. We bring thanks for all of the different ways in which relationships are strengthened. Power of God, we bring nurture for educational institutions. We bring thanks for the power of love that we learned from Jean Vanier, things we learn about what changes, what we learned about what it means to be human. We bring thanks for the opportunities you've offered Earl and the ways that she has blossomed. And how kindness and we celebrate their mothers changed everything. We bring thanks for all of the different ways in which relationships are strengthened. We bring thanks that this nation can be a place of refuge for. We bring thanks for the power of love that we learned from Jean Vanier and elsewhere. What we learned about what it means to be human. We pray that it might continue to be so. And how kindness and respect changed everything. And yet we know that evil also stalks our world. We bring thanks that much as we can list the things that we're grateful for, we bring thanks for the brother also with persecution and evil and misfortune and illness and death. We pray that it might continue to be so. These stories of disaster strike a chord in us because we all have to find ways to cope with the evil that's bigger than we are. We bring thanks that much as we can list the things that we're grateful for, hear us in the silence. We bring thanks for the brother also. We reflect on the things that evil and misfortune and illness and death, hold them into your care. These stories of disaster strike a chord in us because we all have to find ways. Pray for Tracy's family, bigger than we are, as they grieve. We bring thanks that much as we can list. We pray for Alex, who goes into surgery tomorrow. We bring thanks for the brother also. We reflect. We pray for Danish and Emma and Eddie, for Helen Ann and Les and Joanne. Stories of disaster strike. Lorna and Mary and Nellie and Paula. Pray for Tracy and others that we hold before you now in the silence. much as we can listen. We pray for Alex, who goes into surgery tomorrow. We pray for Danish and Emma and Ed, who brings life even at her Helen Ann and Les and Joanne. God, who reaches from the celestial throne room to dry our tears. Pray for Tracy and others that we hold before you now. Come inspire us with the power of sacrifice. Come transform the world that is hurting. Pray for to a place where tears are no more. Emma, Ed, who brings life, join us together. God, who reaches from the celestial throne room to dry our tears. And others that we hold before you now. Come inspire us with the power of sacrifice. Come transform the world that is hurting. Pray for a place where tears are no more. Join us together. God, who reaches from the celestial Go out into the world and trust in the power of a slain lamb. Go out and face the disasters with courage and with strength, knowing that love is more powerful than anything else we can use. Go and trust in the force that is capable of killing enemy. Blessing of God, Creator, Word, and Spirit, be with us all, this day and forevermore. Go out into the world and trust in the power of a slain lamb. Go out and face the disasters with courage and with strength,